Hey, what's up, and welcome to this episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. My name is Josh.
My name is Sam, and I learned something about Josh in the pre-production part of this show. I have to share this with the audience.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm
I
not
did not.
embarrassed about this.
You should not be embarrassed. You should just embrace how old
Mhm.
you are because you are an old soul. So Josh
Yep,
informed me that he and his wife every night, for the most part,
every night, for the most part, yes.
DVR Dateline. You DVR Dateline and watch it. Like
We
that's your
do.
nightly routine. What are you,
Every
85
night.
years old?
Yeah, we are. Starts at 8 o'clock. Yeah, the kids
I
go to
did.
their area, and then we start watching Dateline. Now, I mean, here lately, the Mavs and the Longhorns, the lady softball team, have been in their championship series. So that has interrupted our Dateline, which is actually not a bad thing because it piles up some good Datelines for us to watch later. But it's to the point where it's hard for me to find a Dateline I haven't seen. And I'm
All
like,
right.
oh, yeah, this is the one the Sun did it. So, yeah, that's how it goes.
Oh man. I don't even know what to say to that, and I don't even know how to segue to church teams other than
You don't
just to
have to.
say let's segue to
Mhm.
church teams. The sponsor of today's episode, we're going to be talking about the denomination in the name of the church: Baptist,
Mhm.
Methodist, Nazarene. Obviously, Josh and I are at Baptist churches, so that probably will be more our bent. But really, this could apply to any church. But before we do, we want to thank our sponsor, Church Teams, a longtime supporter of the show. Boyd Pelly is the co-founder and leads the company. He has just been a gift to us, and I know that he will be a gift to you. So give him a call. You can go to est.church to get their free offer. They do anything and everything church management software. Texting, got it. Check-in, got it. Giving, got it. Scheduling, got it. They do it all. And they have a scalable pricing system for large and small churches. So if you want something a la carte, you can get that too. So go to est.church to get their free offer. They've got a 2-month trial. Just reach out to them, tell them we sent you. I would appreciate that. And I know Boyd over at Church Teams would appreciate it too. And I don't want to leave
Yeah.
out Jill. Jill is at Church Teams. I don't know that she's ever been mentioned on the podcast, but I interact with her just as much as I do Boyd, and she's always
Oh,
been
what's
very
up, Jill?
pleasant. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just shout. No, nobody knows it. Well, somebody might know who she is, but shout out there.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
grateful for them. All right, Josh. This is something you're going through right now,
It
and
is. Mhm.
we. This is part of what is driving this episode. Is you're living this. Um,
Mhm.
Before I get myself in trouble with my own
Mm.
people, I'll let you get yourself in trouble with your own people. What are you
Yep.
doing? And explain what this connection is to this denomination and the church name.
Yeah. Yeah. So I won't be in trouble. This is public knowledge. This is very much our church is having this conversation. But one of the things as a new pastor here, I've been here almost 6 months now. And I laid out 4 objectives, 4 areas that we need to think through. One of them is our branding, or just the way that we are sort of represented in the community. And one of them just has a lot to do with the fact that we're at a First Baptist church. Now,
Two
I really am
steeples.
more 2 steeples. We have 2 steeples, lots of columns. Our name is First Baptist. So, in lots and lots of ways, we are projecting an image that we may not want to project. And so I started doing some research on this. And so here's what the research says: a 2011 Lifeway study, particularly dealing with Baptist, was not favorable at all with Baptist denomination in the name. And that was Baptist in general. I don't think most people, just your everyday non church people, really draw a distinction between Southern Baptist, Missionary Baptist, that sort of stuff. Just Baptist in the
Free
name.
Will Baptist.
Yeah.
Yay! They're actually a
They're not
really
going to
good
really
tribe.
know or care. So when they see Southern Baptists are in the news, they just assume all the Baptists. And so 2011 study was not favorable to Baptist in the name. And that was before all the giant dumpster fire that the Southern Baptist Convention has been the last several years. So um,
I wonder
that
if
was,
other Baptist tribes like the Free Will Baptist, because they're a really good tribe. I wonder if And I'm sure because they're such great people that they don't think this way. But I'd be like, you Southern Baptists keep ruining Baptists for everybody.
They would not. They Yeah, they would not be wrong entirely. So there was that. There was some other things. Largely, first is perceived to be stuck. We also found that Baptist have become associated with the name has largely been associated with sex abuse scandals, financial mismanagement, far right political stances. First Baptist, also interestingly enough, largely is perceived to be, based on things I've read and seen, is largely perceived to be Anglo. And so people of color don't perceive First Baptist churches in general to be a church for them. I don't find any fault on either side of that. I think that's just a perception. And then the other thing is First Baptist churches. Here in Dallas, there's a very dominant First Baptist church. And what we have found, or what we
Really?
call, yeah, what we call the franchising sort of mentality. I just introduced our church to this idea that, like, when you go to McDonald's in Lewisville, Texas, and then you go to McDonald's in Flower Mound or McDonald's in Frisco, you assume the menu is going to be the same. You understand that it's a franchise model, that there's a corporate office, these sort of things. I think a lot of non-churched people sort of assume the same things about particularly First Baptist churches, not necessarily that you have Baptist, but First Baptist Flower Mound and First Baptist Lewisville and First Baptist Dallas, they're the same, right? You're the same thing. You're just sort of a franchise. So, in order to step away from that, we started to wrestle with, or we have began to wrestle with, the idea of extending our name out. And so it's a slightly different approach than changing the name. It's a slightly different approach than a DBA, which just adds to, or just you have two separate names. What we're actually going to do is add to our name, add to the front. And so the one we're kicking around, we're on a road, the major road that runs through our town. And the road that our address is Valley Ridge Boulevard. So the name that we're kicking around is Valley Ridge Church, the First Baptist Church of Lewisville. And so the signage, the official documents, everything will still include First Baptist Church. And you might say, well, why are you doing that? Well, there's so much baggage with First Baptist Church. There is, but there's also a lot of tradition and history and good things associated with First Baptist that we don't want to dismiss. We planted a church not far from here called Lakeland. Lakeland planted a church called First Baptist Church Highland Village, which is now very well known as the Village Church. We're the grandparents of the Village Church. We're parents and grandparents of several churches in our area.
Are you Chandler's grandpa?
I'm his pappy. So that's a that's a that's a history that we're. It's not that we're proud or unproud of it. It is what it is, and so we kind of want to extend that name out. And I know some people will say, "Oh, this is just a sneaky way to change the name, or you're actually going to do something different than what you're saying."
Well, it's not really sneaky if you're telling the world on a podcast.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is we're not trying to ever. Well, eventually you'll just look up and you're going to get rid of that First Baptist Church of Lewisville, Texas part of it. I just don't see how we would or why we would right now. Now, I'm not saying down the road, future church may decide that. But what I am saying is, to me, and I explained this to the church, First Baptist Church, Lewisville, First Baptist Church, wherever, it's more of a title than it is a name. You are the first, it's like the first son of Josh. He has a name, but that would be he's the first son. We are the First Baptist Church in this town. I get that. I'm fine with that. I like that. But we did want to take some steps away from the scandals of our denomination, define ourselves outside of that franchise mentality, and do that. So for me, I would say yes. I do think that the denominational name is more of a liability than it is a. I don't think it's neutral. I think it slightly leans towards liability. I don't think it's a massive liability. I just do think it is something that you may want to consider in some cases, not all, but some cases. What do you think, Sam?
Well, statistically, there is no doubt about it. denominations are not growing. They're all
Mm-hmm.
declining, many of them declining precipitously, which
Mm-hmm.
means the churches in those tribes are declining. You can't separate the church from the denomination. And
Mm-hmm.
I know in our own tribe, there's some that might say, well, we're not technically a denomination, we're a convention. I mean, okay, fine. I
Sure.
get all that. Network,
Yeah.
tribe, denomination,
Whatever you want to call it.
convention,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. The association of those churches, um, just about everybody, except for assemblies and a few other tribes and assemblies, that growth rate, if I'm not mistaken, is slowing down as well, although I still think they're growing. There are tribes, just about every tribe is declining. So
Mm-hmm.
is the name, now you may say, well, that has nothing to do with the name. Fair enough, that may be the case,
Maybe.
but
Yeah.
the where people are flocking to are non-denominational churches. In fact, there's a
Mm-hmm.
huge flow from Catholicism into non-denominational churches. Um, why that is, that has yet to be researched. Somebody needs to go do that. But we do know that's happening. So people that are leaving Catholicism aren't going to Baptist. They're not, at least, well, they are here in Southwest Florida because they're
Mm-hmm.
coming to us. But generally speaking, people that are moving from Catholicism into something is, well, it's non-denominationalism. So um, I think you're right. The name is a liability. Now the question is, should you try to overcome that? Should you try to
Mm-hmm.
change that?
Mm-hmm.
I can understand why people would say, if you're just West Church, here, there's actually, I think
Right.
there is a West Church here in Bradenton now because it's West Bradenton, but we
Yeah.
wouldn't change our name to West Church from West Bradenton Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but let's just say we were West Bradenton Church
Mm-hmm.
instead of West Bradenton Baptist Church. I think that there would be an argument to be made that you're misleading people. You are obviously a Baptist church. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and is it a bait and switch if you kind of
Yeah.
come
Right.
across as a non-denominational church? Now, I could counter that and say just about every non-denominational church out there is a Baptist church.
Or
Um, th-
Baptistic. Yes. Very
yeah,
much.
they're
Mm-hmm.
very, the only thing is they don't have the name on their sign.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or
but
the
I get the argument.
association and affiliation.
I get
Right.
the argument that he might mislead people. So I think that this can be argued either way and successfully argued either way. But the question is it a liability? Is the denomination name a liability? In just about every tribe, it is.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way around the stats.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's fascinating to find out that, we like to say that these non-denominational churches, they're just watered down, whatever denomination, watered down Baptist, watered down whatever. I don't find that to be true. I think a lot of the non-denominational churches are just as theologically robust and as strong and convictional as your run-of-the-mill denominational church. So that's a fascinating thing to me because you can find in most every town in the South, you can find a Baptist church, whatever, First Baptist Church, county seat, and a non-denominational church in that same town, both theologically similar, very similar in their theology, almost the same theology. They have the same heroes. They read the same books. They go to the same conferences. But in a lot of cases, the non-denominational church is attracting, while the Baptist church is not. And this is extremely just blanket statements. I understand that in different towns it'll be different ways, but so it's not the theology, is my point. It's not the convictions. There is a reputation, a name that is attached to the churches that's that in many cases is unfairly attached. It's just I can't compensate for what is constantly in the media with regards to Baptist. Am I proud to be Baptist? Yes. Am I convictionally Baptist? Yes. In my mindset, I am. In my theology, I am. And I make no apologies about that, nor do I think anybody should as far as their theology is concerned. However, at the same time, I don't want to have to answer to reputations that I had nothing to do with. And so I think the balance that we're trying to strike by having and we're not totally sure we're going to go with Valley Ridge. It seems like we're 90% sure we're going that direction. But Valley Ridge is kind of our moniker. But as soon as you drive on campus, with no apologies, we are the First Baptist Church in this town. We were and we are, and For better or worse, that's who we are. So we're trying to. I think we're striking a balance there and avoiding that bait and switch. There's no doubt about it. We're a Baptist church.
Yeah, yeah. Are you striking a balance, or are you threading a needle? I think you've made a
Hmm.
good argument that you're striking a balance, and I love how you've postured it. And this is a marketing angle. We
Absolutely.
are, we're the First Baptist Church is kind of the title, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
name is Valley Ridge or whatever it ends up being.
Right.
I think that does require a bit of explanation, but I understand it, I get it, and I think it's a good way for you to go. We here at West Bradenton Baptist Church have long just decided that we're going to keep Baptist in the name,
Hmm.
although it does come up regularly here, like, is that a good idea?
Hmm.
And I've always just said, I have no plans, me myself, I have no plans to change it, although it is a huge hurdle for us. And I do think it has prevented growth.
Hmm.
So it is something that is definitely at the forefront of my mind. I have this conversation a lot, and I recently had a conversation with somebody. They learned I was a pastor. Oh, what church? Oh, West Bradenton. Oh, the Baptist church. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, and I could tell where it was going, and he said, "You're not Southern Baptist, are you?" And I said, "No, we're Florida Baptist." And he goes,
Hmm.
"Oh, thank goodness. I would never go to a Southern Baptist church."
Hmm.
And, it was like, "Okay, maybe we should just call ourselves Florida Baptist from here on out. That may help." Um,
Hmm.
and, it's just conversations like that and conversations that my own people have where, are we doing the right thing? For now, we're keeping the name in it. It's who we are. I don't want to mislead people. I don't want to bait and switch. I think most of our people like it. The only thing that I've had to really push back on, and I think I'm the only one that cares, is people like, oh yeah, WBBC. I'm like, Don't do that. I can't stand
Yeah, we've
W. It
talked
sounds like
about, yeah.
it sounds like a radio station or the British Broadcasting Corporation, or whatever. It's just like,
Right, right.
we're not WBBC. Well, it's
Mhm.
underneath all the chairs. It's underneath all the folding chairs.
Well, yeah,
WBBC.
that's what the Baptists used to love, just sharpening our name on everything we got. Just as soon as it came off the Sam's Club truck, we would Sharpie our name on the side of that thing. Um,
I'm gonna
yeah,
scrub every one of those Sharpie
I
WBBCs off of
let
every
the
single stinking chair that we have here.
yeah. I think, another pushback that I've heard, and I respect this to some degree, is just, um, and this is, and I guess it's the domination. I feel like I have various degrees of concern with this. Baptist in the name. Let's say we were Calvary Baptist or Grace Baptist or West B. I think I would be much more on the neutral side of that. I do think that the attachment of the First Baptist it's a separate yet related conversation. There is just
I
something
agree. As
that goes
somebody who
along with it.
pastored a First Baptist, yes.
Mm.
Founding church of the cooperative program, First Baptist Church Murray.
Yeah, I was at First Baptist Saxe, then I was at a Second Baptist, and even in the conversations there with Second Baptist, there was some attachment to First Baptist and the way that First Baptist behaved and acted and the assumptions that were made about First Baptist. And I can stand in the tension where I'm like, a lot of that's unfairly attached to those churches. But at the same time, it is attached to those churches. It is attached to us. And so should we take any steps, and that's kind of what I told the church, we're considering taking a step away from that baggage with the Southern Baptist Convention in particular, and allowing us to be ourselves defined. Valley Ridge Church is our own definition. We are going to define it the way we want to define it and the way that we are, instead of being attached to all of the other First Baptist churches in the community. I've heard people say, well, there are people that go to towns and the first thing that they're looking for is a First Baptist church. When they move to a city, they want to join a First Baptist church. And my response to that is, maybe, according to that Lifeway study, less than 10% of Americans look for the denomination, particularly Baptist, when they go to a town. Less than 10%. And so if we're keeping it for that sort of denominational identity, I think you're straining at gnats. Furthermore, I'm not that concerned with that demographic. My concern is the lost, the dying, the people that are far from God. And I'm not saying that people are not concerned with that, but when I'm going to make a decision, if a if a family is moving in town and we're going to a First Baptist church, by golly, if they're that brand loyal, they've probably already heard the gospel. They probably are Christians. They're probably following Jesus in some way, and so they can go find that if they
And they'll
want
probably
that.
visit your church anyway.
They will, especially with the way that we're doing it, with that First Baptist is still attached to it. So I would just say here's my take. I don't think that you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't think you need to hide your denominational affiliation or your association. It's in our new members class. It's very much part of who we are. But I do think you need to talk it through with an ever changing, constant, rapidly changing. If you had this conversation 10 years ago, it's overdue. You need to have it again. But if you haven't had it in the last 5 years, as a church, respectfully, just consider it. Just say, is there something we need to do? I know a church, a First Baptist church, that can't have this conversation. They just wouldn't take that step. And they just went by their city's name. That would be like us going Louisville's first. And that helps take those steps. But
Yeah.
worth considering. I think it is a liability.
We're not changing the name, but we have marketed ourselves as a neighborhood church first.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to westb.org, you will see West Bradenton, a neighborhood church.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now we haven't changed the name, but we are marketing ourselves in a little different light.
Yeah.
Because I do want to be known first as a neighborhood church, second as a Baptist church. So there are degrees to which you can do this, even if you don't want to go through like a formal name change.
Right.
So, the other thing that I want to say is I love being Baptist because of a lot of the history from like 1600 to 1800. I love the story of Roger Williams, John
Mm-hmm.
Leland,
Mm-hmm.
Obadiah Holmes. The early colonial history of Baptist, James Ireland, is goodness. I mean, it's so good and so rich. Now, Southern Baptist from like 1845 till about 1900, 1920, not so good.
Mm-mm.
um, we were formed out of the desire to keep slaves, so I don't like that part of our history. We didn't do civil rights correctly, and we're certainly not doing sexual abuse properly either right now. So there are parts of Baptist history that I love. It's like I'm proud to be Baptist. Religious liberty exists in the United States because of Baptists. Most people don't know that, but the
Mm-hmm.
reason that we are a free people religiously is because of Baptists.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't know that. They're not taught that anymore. So, while I'm proud of that, it's not like you can slap that on the sign and people go, they're the freedom people. They're the liberty people. That's not what we're known for anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm very fond of parts of our history, particularly roughly 1600 to 1800 in the United States, because of the other parts of our history, we really have some black eyes. And that's why we have decided as a church, we're not changing the name. We're West Bradenton Baptist, but we are going to market ourselves as a neighborhood church. And we use things like West B. It's a bit of a nickname.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of takes the edge off of Baptist without changing the name.
I think it's a good, healthy conversation to have. If we as a church look up in a year from now and we vote to stay First Baptist Church Louisville, I'm totally fine with it. We'll figure it out. We'll work it through. We'll be more known by what we do than that. But I am just very proud that our church is at least having the conversation in a healthy and respectful way with an eye toward the lost. That's what we're concerned about, and not one. And I'm with you. I love being Baptist for all of our big, large, broad history on both sides of the pond. Um, I happen to be a Southern Baptist. I'm happy to be a Texas Baptist, but I love being a Baptist. So that's kind of how the way I would pitch it. But that's
I like
that's
that.
the time we got right now, man.
I like that. Hey, the one group that might buck this trend, and we'll just have to watch, it's too early to tell, are the Global Methodists. They are doing a ton of good stuff. So,
Hmm.
can Global Methodist become a name that people gravitate towards because of what they're doing? Time will
Hmm.
tell. But if I were to, wager, I don't wager, but if I were to wager which tribe might overcome some of their hurdles, I would say Free Will Baptist, and Global
Hmm.
Methodists. Those are the
Hmm.
two that I would put at the top of my list. There's some others that I would list. Assemblies seem to do okay, but yeah, Global Methodist and Free
Hmm.
Will Baptist, I think, are two of the better tribes, and throw in Texas Baptist there as well.
Yes, and I would take that bet and bet against you, because I just don't think we can overcome these denominational
Well,
struggles.
I'm trying to
But
be
I
an
am proud of what
optimist
they're
here.
doing. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
think they're doing
what
great.
they're doing is great, but we're
Mm,
talking about people's perceptions, not reality.
right, exactly right. Well, that is all the time we have for today. We are thankful that you are listening and subscribing wherever you are. I just this morning heard a great podcast, another kind of Christian leaders podcast, shared it with two other people, thought it was so good. And I just asked that you would do the same. If this podcast was thought provoking and something that was helpful, just go ahead and throw that in a text message, send it to a couple of other established church leaders. We would appreciate it. Talk to you next week.